Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Mind the Mental Monday. I hope that everybody has had a good day, and I hope that you're doing well today on this Mind the Mental Monday. Um, Come on in the room. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good to see you. Good to see you all. I hope you had a wonderful day. And I hope that you will continue to have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, or whatever time. Put in the chat where you're tuning in from. We want to know where you're tuning in from, whether you're on Instagram or whether you're on Facebook. Put in the chat where you're tuning in from. We're excited to have each and every one of you here. So I want to talk about a topic tonight that's very important in the area of mental health and minding the mental. And that is the need for us to get intentional rest. And I don't know about you, but I mean, that's one area where I have the most difficulty is trying to get some rest. I feel like I'm on the go 7 days a week. And the way that this topic came to me is a couple weeks ago, I did a post. I had just gotten over my second bout of COVID, well, since the beginning of the pandemic. So it took a couple years to get it again, but I got it again. And it forced me to rest. So I was in bed for a good 3 to 5 days. But when I got up, I mean, I felt so recharged. It was the most rested that I have felt in a really long time. And so it just, really made me think, wow, Benita, do you really have to get sick and be forced to rest? Because that's really not a good way to go about getting rest, being forced to rest by getting sick. And as for me, I have a weak immune system, since birth. And so for me, rest is critically important for me to stay healthy. But like most Americans, and I think really we are probably the only country that, where people just run around like chickens with their heads cut off all the time, just always on the grind, always busy. There are other countries where they have siesta time. They have, even in the middle of the day, a time for people to like take naps when they're supposed to be working. And so I just feel like in our culture, it just makes it so difficult to really think about getting intentional sleep, because so very often it's kind of put down, right? Like, most people, really get excited. It makes them feel good about themselves when they can go around bragging about how they didn't get any sleep and how they've been up all night and how they've just been working so hard. For some reason, that makes people feel like somebody, I guess, but it's really not the healthiest way to think. And it's really not something that is good for our mental health. Getting enough sleep is really essential for our mental health. And so it kind of works both ways. Like, we need sleep and we need rest. We need times where we are able to just rest and rejuvenate not only our bodies, but our minds. And so if we don't get enough sleep, it impacts our mental health. And if we have a mental health challenge, it can make us not get enough rest, right? So then we can find ourselves in this sort of cycle. But I think, as I've mentioned on Mind the Mental Mondays before, everything that we do is about intentionality. we have to be intentional to make sure that we do the things that are necessary for us to be in good health, both good physical health as well as good mental health. And so we have to sort of try to find ways to get the rest that we need. Now, for the most part, adults need anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And that part really depends on the individual, whether it's 5, whether they need 7 or 8 or 9 hours of sleep. For me, I have I really kind of tested my own self, and I know that I need at least 7 hours of sleep in order to really be high functioning the next day. If I get if I'm only operating on about 4 or 5 hours of sleep, it's going to impact my day, and I'm going to spend at least a portion of my day just sort of blankly staring at my computer screen because I'm so tired and I just don't have the energy to do anything, and my mind is just not, it's not with it. And and so I might have a few pauses throughout the day. And so I noticed that for those the period of like 3 to 5 days that I was sick, and where I ended up getting a lot of rest, when I got up from that, I had so much energy. And that day, it was a Saturday, I got so much accomplished. I felt so accomplished at the end of that day, just because I had gotten some rest, and I not only allowed my body to get rest, but my mind was rejuvenated, and I was able to sort of think clearly and think about things that I needed to get done in terms of not just like my daily work, but just what I feel like God has called me to do, right? In preparing for different engagements and things that I might have. Before I go on, speaking of engagements, I really want to take the time to thank those of you who participated in my virtual event that I held on Saturday, November 4th. We had a really great time. It was fun. People were able to get a lot out of it. I thank you for those of you that provided feedback in some way. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. We will be doing more of those in the future, so just be on the lookout for those. And for those of you who won prizes, your prizes are on the way. So be on the lookout. All right. So I just needed to kind of take the time to just thank you, because you didn't have to take time out of your Saturday evening to hang out with me, and you did, and I appreciate it. I also want to publicly thank my team who is behind the scenes. You see them on there, Joy Hall and Minister Ebony Robinson. They are both on my team. They're always behind the scenes, kind of making things happen. And I appreciate the two of you as well. All right, so having said that, getting back to the topic at hand, I wanted to just, I thought it would be important to dedicate at least one Mind the Middle Monday to this topic of rest, and really talk about the importance of rest to our health. And so sleep helps to maintain our cognitive skills, such as our attention, our learning, our memory. And poor sleep can make it more difficult for us to think, to learn, to grasp concepts. And as adults, we're working every day, and even in whatever our jobs might be, and even for people who don't have may not have a 9 to 5 kind of a job, but you still have things that you have to do. You still have responsibilities, whether it's in the home or at a workplace. You've got responsibilities that you have to handle, and you have to be able to think clearly, no matter what kind of job you have, no matter what kind of work you're doing. You have to be in a space where you can think. You got to be able to think. And I don't know about you, but for me, if I don't get enough rest, if I'm just tired throughout the day, there's no amount of caffeine that can help pick you up when you haven't gotten rest. Those energy drinks, they just make you jittery, right? But when you haven't gotten enough sleep, you're still just gonna feel not rested, and your brain is just not going to function at the capacity that it could if you rested it. And many of you have probably, seen a lot of information out there about sleep and about the importance of sleep, the importance of not sleeping with your TV on, the importance of not letting the last thing you do before you go to bed be looking at your phone, because the lighting that is in these devices, our televisions, our computers, our telephones, are such that it doesn't allow for us to get into that deep sleep that we need to get into in order to really fully rest our bodies at the cellular level. So for those of us who like to do that last little scroll before we go to bed, I want to encourage us to try to develop some new bedtime routines that doesn't include television, that doesn't include eating right before going to bed. So in order to get a good night's rest, because it's not just a matter of sleeping I'm sorry, I keep saying 5, probably because that's on average about how much sleep I get, really is about 5 hours, but 7 to 9 hours is what's recommended. But it's not just the quantity of sleep that you get, it's also the quality of that sleep that's important. And so when you are if you eat less than 3 hours before it's time for you to go to bed, and you're going to bed on a full stomach, it's not good, especially if you suffer with GERD or esophageal reflux disease. It's just not a good. You shouldn't go to sleep on a full stomach, because that can enhance your reflux, but it can also just make your sleep not where it needs to be, the quality that it needs to be. And so think about doing something else before you go to bed. So, give yourself a half an hour to an hour of time to just wind down. And in that time, think about, rather than watching television or scrolling your social media, think about reading a book, or think about just meditating, just putting on some quiet, peaceful, meditative music, and just sort of thinking about your day. And while you're doing that, think about doing some journaling as you are getting ready to go to sleep. Think back over your day and write out things that you're grateful for. What are you thankful about? What are the good things that happen during the day that you're grateful for? So little things like that can really make a difference in the quality of sleep that you get, as well as the quantity of sleep, if we're intentional about that. The other thing is that if you have a partner who lives with you, sleeps with you, maybe, trying to get that understanding of, okay, this is my wind down time. this is my sleep time. And so I'm going to need you, if you're up and need to watch TV, I'm gonna need you to do that in another room. I'm gonna need you to go somewhere else in the house, or, if you can, if you have that option, or just try to maybe set a sleep time or something together if you can. So, it's important to just have those lines of communication open about your sleep routine and kind of what you desire to get out of your routine. Poor quality sleep can increase risk for mental health disorders. It can even increase risk of suicidal ideation. So that lets you know right there that sleep is nothing to play with. And if a lot of times younger people in particular, feel like they can, burn the candle at both ends, they used to say, stay up half the night, feel like they can stay up half the night, as well as, and also feel that they can, I'm sorry, I thought something happened with my audio. So they feel like they can stay up half the night, sorry about that, and feel like they can just rip and run and do all the things. But they actually need more sleep than the average adult. And so even with our children, it's important to, especially with young children, to really establish a solid sleep routine for them. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, it's time to go to bed. And, practice some kind of wind down with them. Again, reading a book, taking their phones, out of the room, taking their computers out of the room, so that they have nothing else that they can do except get the sleep that is required. Because when you don't get enough rest and you wake up the next day and you're groggy and you're tired, not only can it, mess with your mental health, I mean, it can just mess with your mood overall. It can impact how you treat other people. And so, you going in to work, barking at your your coworkers because you didn't take the time to get enough rest, right? And so it's important in so many areas of our lives in order to be high functioning, in order to function in this culture, in the United States. It's important to get a good night's sleep, good quality sleep, so that when you wake up, you're refreshed and you're able to take on the demands of the day. When you don't equip yourself with enough sleep, the demands of the day are going to just eat at you. They're just going to feel like weights on your back, and you're not going to produce in the way that you might want to produce. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to, run your own business, and you've got a lot going on, especially if you're like a solopreneur, like when you're doing everything. You're the assistant, you the graphic artist, you the social media, assistant. You're playing all the roles, doing all the things. It is integral for you to find the time, for you to make time somewhere to get the rest that you need. So my question, though, is for people who feel like, rest can actually feel like it's like a luxury, right? There are some people who might feel like they don't have the luxury of rest. And what do I mean by that? There are people that are working, 2, 3, 4 jobs to make ends meet. They've got children, they've got mouths they got to feed. They've got, they have to find a way to keep it all together, to hold it all together for their families. And so it's like rest. What is that? What is rest? Good evening, Jossie. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Glad you're tuning in. Thank you for the comment. Blessings to you. But it can be hard to find the time to rest. And so, like for me, not only do I work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, but I'm in ministry, and so my weekends. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what a weekend is. I have no idea what that is. And so and because I'm working Monday through Friday, I don't have the luxury to say, okay, Monday is going to be my Saturday, for example. But when I was ill, and when I realized that just being in the bed, just resting those few days, the amount of energy that gave me, it just made me realize that I have to find a way. I graduated from the illustrious Clark Atlanta University, and our motto is, I'll find a way or make one. I've got to find a way. I've got to make a way to get the rest that I need. And right now, the only way that I can do that, given that I don't really have a weekend where I can take just a full day off, right? Sometimes I do. Once in a while, I'll have a Saturday where my calendar says no events. And it's like, I can rest. I can sleep in late. But those are few and far between. And so what I have to do is I have to make sure that I discipline myself to go to bed at the time that I set to go to bed. So what I've done is I set up in my phone a sleep time. So at 10:30, my phone goes into sleep mode. That means that all of my like text, calls, all that stuff stops. And it tells me, okay, it's 10:30, it's time for you to wind down. And so that means that my wind down routine is, okay, I'm going to get ready for bed. I'm going to, well, this is in theory. This is what I want to do. I haven't necessarily, I got to be real with y'all, right? Because this is a struggle for me. I was telling somebody today that, last night, I was supposed to be winding down at 10:30, right? To go in order to be sleep by 11 o'clock. But my husband and I started binging this show, and it got so good that it was like midnight. And I finally was like, babe, it's midnight. We gotta go to bed and we gotta get up. We gotta get up for prayer in the morning, But theoretically, what I'd like to do is at 10:30 is to get ready for bed and to take, 20 minutes to read, just because I want to read more and learn more. And so just to read and then, put on my little wind down meditative kind of music and go to sleep. That's really what I should be doing. So create a bedtime routine, create a bedtime ritual for yourself. And, it takes 21 days, I think, for something to become a habit. So you have to do something consistently for 21 days before it becomes habitual, before it becomes a habit. So we have to make these behaviors a habit. We can't just know that we need rest for a variety of reasons and set out to do these things and then like not not follow through with them and not maintain the discipline that is necessary to carry them out. And so so let me know how that works. What are some of your sleep routines? Do any of you have a sleep routine? Do you have a bedtime, even as an adult? When you don't have somebody that's over you making you go to bed, Are you disciplined about getting the sleep that you need? Um, let me know. And let me know, like, what are some things that you do? Like, for those of you who might feel like you don't really have the luxury of sleep, right? You're working all the time. You're trying to make ends meet. What do you do? How do you make some time for rest? And there's a comment that says, I'm struggling in this area. You're not by yourself. A lot of us are struggling in that area. And again, a part of it has to just do with the culture that we live in, where everybody is, just ripping and running and grinding, as we like to say. I'm on my grind, and we get prideful about it. But our grind ultimately is going to grind us into the ground. And what good are we there? Some of us are cutting short our life expectancy by just grinding all the time, and not taking the time to take care of these precious things we call our bodies, that are living and breathing and moving and doing and thinking, right? So this body is something that we have to take care of, and it starts in the mind. In order to take care of our minds, in order to mind the mental, we got to rest our minds. And I don't know about you, but there are times where, I'm trying to go to sleep, but my mind is racing. So my mind is not resting. And that can be just as detrimental as not getting the physical rest. When you are actually calling yourself resting, you're in what you think of as a restful state. Maybe you're reclining in your recliner, or you're just reclining in your bed, but your mind is constantly racing. You're constantly sort of on to the next thing. And that can also really cause us to not get the rest that we actually need. So we have to find ways that forces our minds to just shut down. We have to, make sure our minds just relax for a minute. And I think one way to do that, one way that's helpful for me is that, there comes a point in the day where I will just kind of put on some peaceful music and just deep breathe. And, just that peaceful music takes me to a different space, and it causes me to focus more on whatever it is I'm needing to focus on. And it just, that sort of background music sometimes is really helpful, to kind of get through those things that I need to get through. And it can also be helpful to play that, like, white noise. They have little boxes that you can get where it just plays what they call white noise, which is just like background, noise, like a waterfall, like nature sounds, meditative music that can help you really kind of get into that deep, REM sleep that we need in order to really rejuvenate ourselves, and our bodies. And it's important. It's important, not only for getting our work done, or getting our meeting our calling, but it is also important in our relationships. Because when you don't get enough rest, and you're cranky all the time, and you're always like, like this at your your partner or your mate or your friends or whatever the case might be in your situation, it can really help not be helpful even in our day-to-day relationships, because it impacts how we behave, how we think. It impacts us in so many ways. So I'm here tonight to encourage you to not be forced to rest. Don't have to get some kind of serious illness or some kind of virus that's going to, knock you out for a week for you to rest. And for me, that is always a message. I feel like God is saying, listen, if you're not gonna have enough sense to sit down somewhere sometimes, I'm gonna sit you down. And this is how I'm gonna do it. And I still haven't fully learned my lesson. I still haven't. I'm just gonna be very honest. It's hard. It's really hard. But again, I have to learn to be intentional about certain things. So no matter what's going on, I really need to say I need to have a hard stop at 10:30. Whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm working on, is going to wait till tomorrow because 10:30, I need to wind down. I need to, settle in. I need to tell my brain, because you have to tell your brain that it's time for sleep. When you're in the room, when you're getting ready to go to sleep with the television on, or you're scrolling your phone, or you're on your computer right before you're going to sleep, you're telling your brain the opposite. You're telling your brain that we need to be up. We need to think, we need to look at these messages. We need to process some things. We need to see understand what's going on the screen. That's what you're telling your brain. You're not telling your brain it's time to go to sleep. So we have to train our brains for sleep. And in order to do that, we have to set some different goals. We have to set some boundaries. So unless it's a real emergency, your folk need to know, listen, 10:30, that's it. Don't call me. Don't call me at 10:30. That's my time that I'm going to spend to myself, and I'm going to wind down and do my routine. And I need you to respect that. Now, if it's a real emergency, okay, but emergencies like that they come, once in a blue moon. Every day, you don't have an emergency every day. All right. So your folk need to know that, like, everything is not an emergency. It might be an emergency to you, but it's not really an emergency. So just make sure that people have that understanding. Even the people who might live with you in your household, set those boundaries. Say, listen, this is my bedtime. I can't compromise on it. Maybe on the weekends, but even on the weekends, it's not even good, to do something different on the weekends than you do during the week, because it just throws your body sort of topsy-turvy. So it's best to just be consistent with your routine 7 days a week. I know it's hard, y'all. I know I'm saying this to you all because it's something that is definitely a challenge for me. And it's one that I have to work on. So I wonder, I just thought about this. Let me know if you guys would be up for a sleep challenge. What do you all think about that? Do you think that would be something that might be helpful? If as a community we encourage each other to get to sleep when we're supposed to, or maybe you can have an accountability partner that 10 minutes before your wind down time sends you a text message to say, hey, you about to wind down? It's time to wind down. Don't take another phone call. Don't scroll. Give. And the other thing too with the scrolling right before you go to bed is some of the stuff that we see on social media. I mean, seriously, not my stuff, of course, but but some of the stuff that we see is a lot of negativity, right? And that's not something that we need to be taking in right before we go to bed. So we want to think about what we're grateful for. We want to write down our, what we're grateful about, what we're thankful for. We want to, be thinking about those things. The other thing we can do is, because what causes our minds to race often is right before we go to bed, we're thinking about what we got to do tomorrow. Tomorrow is not here yet, and it's not promised, right? So rather than doing that, a part of your wind down exercise, along with writing down, like while you're grateful or reading or something like that, could be writing down what you have to do tomorrow. Because it's something about, and this is a scientific fact, that is something about, it's something about writing down those things that you have to do, the next day, that kind of, it's like a brain dump. That's what they call it. It gets it out of your brain and on paper. Now, somebody made a comment about that sometimes your sleep deprivation can be due to hormonal imbalances, and that is very true. And as a woman who, I'm 55, so I'm in the throes of menopause, and I can tell you that I was just telling somebody this too. Like lately, I'm tossing and turning at night, so I don't really get a full night's sleep. I do quite a bit of tossing and turning. That's something that you can maybe speak with your doctor about. What are some things that you can do that can be helpful to get sleep. Sometimes there are there are hormone replacement kinds of medications that can be taken under the care of a doctor. They might recommend certain kinds of foods. It might be helpful. Sometimes for some people, like tea might work, like chamomile tea. But then you worry about getting up and going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So it's like, what do they say? 6 on one hand, half a dozen on the other. So in some cases, and for people that actually have medically diagnosed insomnia, that's something that you have to kind of work through with your medical professional. But even with that, creating a routine that you try to stick to is better than not having a routine, and then on top of that having issues with hormonal imbalances and things like that can cause you to not be able to get the amount of sleep that you need to get. So so I hope that is helpful. I just really needed to kind of just talk about it, because I know I'm not the only one, and it just struck me that and that's not the only time I've been sick and had to like be in bed for a few days, but for whatever reason, that time it just really struck me, because I felt so energized once the virus was, had taken its course and was over, and I was able to kind of get up and start moving again. I had so much more energy than before. And so it just was really striking to me that, to just really try not to have to be forced to rest. There's no shame in resting. If you can take a nap during the day, do it. I don't know if it, for me, cat naps actually help me. Some people that doesn't work so well. But I can actually literally take like a 10-15 minute doze, not a deep sleep. You're not going to get into a deep sleep, but I can actually kind of be a little bit energized just in those during the day, in those like couple minutes of just kind of resting my eyes and just not being in a deep sleep, but sleep enough that it just helps me to kind of get a little bit re-energized to finish out the rest of the day. But it's just something that's so important because when we don't get the kind of sleep that we need, it can lead to all kinds of health challenges that we might not necessarily equate to sleep, but there are quite a few challenges that we might have. So here are some tips for creating healthy sleep habits. I mentioned some, but this comes out of an article that was put out by Columbia University Department of Psychiatry. And I mentioned this already, but it says try to keep a consistent sleep schedule, waking up around the same time, even on the weekends. Now that's real hard for me because if I get a Saturday that I can sleep in, I'm gonna sleep in. Set a bedtime that's early enough for you to get at least 7 hours of sleep. But it also says, however, don't go to bed unless you're sleepy. So I don't know. I know my husband has trouble, like if he falls asleep on the couch watching TV for a couple of hours and then tries to go to bed, he can't go back to sleep. So, try not to like fall asleep. So if you take a little afternoon cat nap, that's one thing. But if your bedtime is at 11 o'clock and you don't try not to fall asleep between 5 and 11. Try your best to kind of stay awake so that you are sleepy when it's time to go to bed, so you can go ahead and get some sleep. Establish a relaxing bedtime routine that helps to transition from your day. And I talked about many of those earlier. If you're having trouble falling asleep, don't lie in bed awake, it says. If you can't get to sleep, get out of bed and do something relaxing until you feel tired. So whatever that is for you, find something that relaxes you. Like I said, it could be a cup of chamomile tea, maybe a small cup, so that you're not awakened in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. Create a healthy sleep environment. Avoid bright lights and loud sounds. Keep the room at a comfortable, cool temperature. Try to limit electronics in your bedroom. One of the things that I recently started doing, which I had never done before, was to sleep with an eye mask. And when I tell you that really works, because when your eyes are closed, if there's light around, like in another room that's coming into your bedroom, or from outside maybe that's coming into your bedroom, even when your eyes are closed, that you can still see the light. But when you put like one of those masks on, it's almost like the equivalent of having a room darkening shade. And for me, it's been really helpful to get into a deeper sleep. Exercise regularly, but not within a few hours before going to bed. So, and avoid caffeine and nicotine late in the day, and limit alcoholic drinks before bed. Some people might like to have a glass of wine. Just make sure you do that, maybe at dinner time, maybe around 6-ish, not when it's closer to time for you to go to bed. Avoid caffeine. So, maybe make your last cup of coffee or tea or whatever the case might be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon-ish, 3 o'clock-ish. I think that's high tea time in England. 3 o'clock, I think. But, try to, just maybe try to incorporate some of these healthy sleep habits, and hopefully they will help you to get not only a greater quantity of sleep, but a better quality of sleep. All right, so that's all I got for tonight. I was just kind of hoping that I wasn't the only one who struggled with, being disciplined about getting the amount of sleep that I know that I need to function well. It's a difference between functioning and functioning well. So I know what amount of sleep I need to function well the next day. But it's up to me, right? It's up to me to be disciplined enough to get that sleep. And it's up to you as well. And then for those that don't feel like you have, again, that luxury, um, just try to think of ways that even if you can't get, that some kind of good rhythm of sleep on a daily basis, like try to find a day in the week or something where you can take a break from the norm and rest, find a way to like rest your mind and, rest your body. Maybe talk to your healthcare provider for other suggestions. All right. So I hope this helps somebody. Let me know about that sleep challenge if you're game, and we'll see what we can come up with to make it fun. And I hope that this was helpful to you. And next week, we're going to take a break next week because guess what? Next week is a holiday already. Thursday is that Thanksgiving holiday or Indigenous Peoples Day, right? So we are going to take a break. I know I took a break last week. It wasn't really a break. I couldn't do last week because I had to work. I had to work out of town. So anyway, I hope this has been good for you tonight, and join me for Mind the Mental Monday again in 2 weeks. All right. Have a happy Thanksgiving, Indigenous Peoples Day, everybody. God bless, and I'll see you next time.